Hey, Charlie Fisher here. I'm here today with William Townsend and going to participate in their Staked Out Fly Tying series. I'm going to demo one of my little favorite go-to fly. When I was the harbor master in Port Aransas, I'd always go down and talk to the pro guides that would come in, and my favorite question was, like with Billy Trimble, is like, if you could fish with one fly the rest of your life, what would it be? And Billy's was white, and Ken Jones's was a blue crab, and in the last year, mine has gotten to be a shrimp pattern go-to. You can vary the color, but we're going to talk about tying it today just in its simplicity. Going to use some Gamakatsu SC15 1/0 hooks, and I've gone to using tungsten scud weights instead of dumbbells for weight. And what I've discovered is, just testing them in the harbor, if you tie them with 1/0 SC15s, you can use a medium scud weight and it'll turn the fly over and right hook up. If you tie it with a number 1 hook, you could use a small scud weight and it'll turn it over. So they're kind of weight specific on the size hook that you're going to use to get these things to turn over properly. But we're going to just do this with a 1. That should hold it. So I use 280 thread. I know some people like using the lighter thread, but I just like to be able to cinch down on the thing and not have the thread break. I'm not real precise on how I wrap these things. Let me get this in there again. There we go. But I'll just wrap some thread back a little past the curve of the hook. Don't try to get too concentric with my wraps, just enough to kind of get it some thread base to work from. And break out a new bag of tungsten weights. Again, these are mediums because we're using a 1/0 hook. And I like to get the weight where the forward edge of the scud weight is kind of even with the point of the hook. So it's back around the curve a little bit. Just get it started to cinch it down. And I really wrap this thing a lot so it doesn't move around on you. Wrap's maybe not too pretty, but it serves its purpose on keeping it in place. I'll wrap it enough that it's pretty well covered the scud weight. That's got that bound down where that'll stay put. The other material that we started using, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now, and I think Jeff Davis already did a demo too, with the coyote. We found a place in Colorado we were able to buy winter kill tails rather than buying patches, and this was the best deal on the planet. These things, this one, it's probably got 200 flies tied off of it so far, and I've obviously got more than half of the tail left. Coyote, to me, is about the most natural shrimp-looking color in the water when it's wet. It's been a really good go-to source of material for us. So I'm going to pull up a little patch of hair here, about a 1/4 inch. Cut it real close to the base. Jeff went over this in his thing. A lot of underhair in these guys, so you got to pull about half of the hair comes out as under hair, and you end up with just a nice little clump that gets tied on right on top of the scud weight. And I like to tie it on the top, so it's actually, when the fly's in the water running, it's actually on the bottom. And then the other material that I use is finished raccoon. And if I'm doing it in kind of a natural color, I like to do pink. If I'm doing it in like a white fly or a black fly, sometimes I'll put purple in it. So those are the two colors of the raccoon that I'll use. We're gonna do this one in pink. And it doesn't take much. These are just zonker strips. Pull out maybe about, not even that much. And the pink is going to go on next. It gets tied right on top of the scud weight, just like we did the coyote. And we're just going to bind that down, cut the excess off. And then the other material that I use, and this was kind of fun to experiment with, this material is aoudad hair off the chaps on the legs of an aoudad that we shot out in West Texas last year. And this stuff I thought would make really good antenna material, and it turned out to be exceptional. It's naturally variegated, and it's really pretty indestructible in the water. I mean, you can use rubber silicone, or you could use other materials. I think Chuck, who's tied a couple of previous flies, was actually telling me he was looking for some nutria whiskers, so that's kind of one up in my aoudad hairs, but that's kind of fun. So anyway, these things are about 8 inches long. If you just pull 2 of them out and fold them over, I like to tie these right on the top of the scud weight and just leave them untrimmed at this point out the back. Whip all of that down, and then at this point I turn the fly over, and depending on what you want to do, I'm using the EP crustacean eyes in large. My philosophy is, if you're going to put an eye on it, put the largest eye on there that's available, so it's actually can be seen by the predator. And they've come out with the new UV series. So the green ones and the orange ones are UV, and I think, you know, that's a plus also for attraction and visibility. So we're going to tie this guy with green eyes. And I just pull out a pair, make sure that you get the eyes even with each other. Put them on the top of the hook, inside the curve, and I like to have them stick out. It's probably 3/8 of an inch. It's not quite a 1/2 inch. And I just start by binding them down and work my way from the front of from the eye back towards the curve of the hook. Bind them down well. And then I like to come out, pull your hair down out of the way, and come and catch the eye with one wrap around the base. And then catch your second eye with a little loop. And cinch that down, and that, I think, kind of keeps your eyes spread just a little bit. And so that's kind of everything that's done at this point. And then over time I've gotten hypersensitive to VOCs, and so I use water-based cement at this point. And I really coat this up real well, particularly into the base of where the eyes are. And this is going to have to sit and dry for just a minute before we can continue, because when you put your brush on, it will stick in that. So the last material we're going to tie into this is EP brush, and the size that I really think works best for for this particular fly is 1.5 inches. And so these are samples of colors that we've tied this thing with. Pink, black, coyote, orange, they call this tiger. It's orange with black tips. This one in the back is olive, obviously white. And then another one that's a pink purple with tarantula legs. Tied a few of those a couple of weeks ago. My fishing partner, Ken Curley, I tossed one of those to him and said, here, try this today. And it was pink and purple and orange and green. And he looked at it and said, what possessed you to tie up this color? But we tried it and we caught a fish on it, so that was fun. So we're going to tie this one today with, I think I'll pull out this olive and we'll use it. And so spin the shrimp back over. I like to start tying on the top side. Get your brush where it starts, right where the other material ends. So bind your wire down there. One other tip I'll give you too on this brush. You can see from my left to my right on the screen, there is a directional effect on this brush. The hairs have a tendency to bend one direction versus the other. And I like to turn it where when I'm pulling on the brush back to get it to lay down nicely, I'm pulling on whatever the natural curve that's built into this when it's spiraled, rather than pulling it in the opposite direction, and it lays down better. So that the hairs kind of face to the back, and I'm going to pull them to the back. So I would apply this other end first, pull off just a little bit of hair so I can expose just wire, wrap my thread where I'm getting right at the end of the first material I put down, bind that down, stand it up, kind of spin it where it's perpendicular. And then I used to hold onto this brush just with my fingers, but I discovered one of these little guys, and I don't actually know what they call this little thing. It's just some kind of tweezers that they make, but it works real well. I recommend getting one of these. I clip it on just a little bit with a little bit of wire sticking out of the end, and then fold the wire over so that it bites and holds onto it. And then you can pull up and just have your finger through the loop and spin this around rather than trying to hang onto it. And the brush works much better if you really make a concentrated effort to pull everything to the back of the fly with every wrap. It just it's easier to pick all the stuff out later. And pay attention that you're doing concentric wraps rather than overlapping wraps, because that too will make it difficult to pull the hair out when you want to fluff this thing up to finish it. But I pull hair towards the back with every wrap. And the amount of material that I'm using on this brush is 1/2 of a strand. If you realistically, if you want to tie it with this not quite as full a body, you can use 1/3 the length of a full strand and tie, particularly if you're tying on number 1 hooks versus these 1/0 hooks, you can get a fly out of 1/3 of a strand of brush rather than half a strand of brush. So it's a little more economical. So pull that forward, tag it down, get it started, and 2 pairs of scissors. One really good one, one trash pair. These are my wire cutters rather than cutting materials, so you're not messing up an expensive pair of scissors clipping this little bit of wire every time. So that gets clipped off. Pull whatever you got this extra back a little bit. Finish the end of the fly with whatever method you've got. I just use, not even sure what it's called, it's just a finger twist that I use, and I usually don't break the thread. That was a mistake, so we'll put a little more on here real quick. And I usually do that twice just to get this thing bound down. Cut it off and it's tied except for fluffing it out. So it's kind of got a wild in the wind hairdo going right now, but I use my bodkin just to pull this stuff out, and I do spend a little extra time making sure that I get everything pulled out that'll come out, so you got a little bit of volume to work with. We've been using this fly, or a variation of it, for probably 2 years now, since we William turned me on to using coyote, and then when I was in Colorado, I found a source of those winter kill tails in a head and horn shop in Gunnison, Colorado, and they were a real deal, so we bought, I don't know, maybe a dozen tails at that point in time. We've been tying with them since then. We got coyote and we got fox. The coyote just seems to be really, really shrimpy in the water. Again, I'm tying a root beer version to this, but about got this all combed out. But I tied a, you know, everybody likes to tell you their best stories, but I tied a. Got a sample of that I'll show you in just a second. So this thing's kind of got a fluffy body right now. I'd like to do a little bit of trim. I come in right underneath the hook, and from the eye of the hook back towards, and I get it a little bit of an angle, and I take a little bit of material on an angle out of the fly so it's tapered a little bit underneath the hook, and then turn it over on the side. And I cut a little bit of a wedge on the side, a little bit of a wedge on the bottom, and a little bit of a wedge on the other side, just so it's got a little bit of a taper to it. And I do use UV set. Jump over and grab his. Here. And I like to spin it and let it soak for just a minute rather than hitting it with the light right away. It kind of gets in where I think it binds a little better on the stuff. And we'll hit it with a little UV. Find that I got to run my light just a little bit longer. I don't know, I probably need to change the batteries out. It doesn't do the 5-second thing like they say you'll do. I'll do it for about 10 or so. And at that point, that's my go-to fly that I tie almost exclusively now, depending on what one of these other colors are. And depending on, you know, kind of what you want to do, there's the color variations. We'll do, that's the black that we did really well on. I've got another root beer, a white, an orange. The beauty of these things is you can alter the size. If you want to go try to really create a big white shrimp and throw it some bigger fish, you can tie it up on a 2/0 and create a lot bigger white shrimp pattern. Maybe add a couple of feathers into it. William has had pretty good luck on these in some of the backcountry around here on some larger fish when the white shrimp are pretty prevalent. So, and then this was the one that Curly was going like, what possessed you to tie that? But it worked for us pretty well the other day also. So that's kind of it. We got coyote, raccoon, 1.5" brush in the color of your choice, large size eyes in UV, aoudad if you got it, rubber or whatever else if you want to put some antennas on it, and tie variations, and have a great day fishing. Thanks.